I think I felt constantly out of my depth, and that was my driver, was the fear of failure. I was very good at delegating because I literally couldn't do it. So because I couldn't read the forms or read the thing or read the HR or whatever it was, I spent quite a lot of money wrapping very good, capable people around me. And that, from default, say I could have read a bit and I was pretty okay at reading, perhaps I would have tried to have done it myself and it wouldn't have been as successful.
Welcome to Your Mind, Your Business, the podcast that dives into the real grit of entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Carina McLeod, CEO and founder of E-Commerce Nurse, an e-commerce growth agency. And today we have an exciting guest, James Martin from Baddow Park House. Welcome, James.
Thank you very much. Nice to see you.
I am super excited to hear your story today because I would say I know James from today, but I've kind of only just started to get to know James. Yeah. But most importantly, I'm keen to hear your whole story because I know you've got a story to tell the audience today. But everybody listening today is probably thinking, who is James? So I'm going to let you introduce yourself for who you are today.
Carina, the first thing is I'm not the chef. So we get that straight out there. I'm not the chef. And it comes up all the time. And I know James, and I've worked with James in the past, and he's into his classic cars and stuff. And that's how I've known him. I am a raw cut entrepreneur from 14 years old. I mean, that's really what it is. And I've run a multi-million-pound sort of portfolio of property, rented property, and we have a big Baddow Park House that is our estate where our main offices and head office are. And we have a big wedding venue, luxury wedding venue there. And you visited the other day and you come to the dinner, and that's it. And we're currently buying businesses, buying more property. I'm 63 years old and I'm sort of in my prime time to sort of do more business.
I love that. I love the fact of you saying about being raw, because I guess that's part of this podcast, is actually getting raw about and really talking about the real grit of running a business. Because from an outsider looking in, I'm like, okay, you seem very successful in your career and what you've been able to achieve, but I'm guessing you've had your ups and downs throughout that journey, and it's not just about sort of where you are now. There's a lot more that's gone on in the background that lots of people don't see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit rewind and I'm going to go back to, I want to know about this James at the age of 14 and understand really what was the start of his entrepreneurial journey.
Carina, the real thing that the background of me is that I've done it all unread. So I don't read or write. I don't read or write today. You know, people say I'm a bit dyslexic. I'm super dyslexic, and I always have been right from a young kid. I would sit in those classes and just daydream my way through the day because nothing went in. I couldn't work out why all the letters looked weird. I couldn't join it all up in my head. And, you know, we're trying to be told to learn something, reiterate it onto paper, and then do it in a time frame that you had to do it for a score. And I didn't get any of that. So I ended up being the very cheeky chap to get around being ridiculed by others of my peers at school. But more importantly, I became a disruptive kid at school because I just didn't get it. And I was very frustrated. You know, it was a long time ago. People didn't understand the issues. I ended up in my headmaster's office after I'd done a test because I'd been super naughty, and they took me to Romford, and I had this test of this thing called dyslexia, and they brought my parents in, sat us all down, and said, "Look, we're very sad to tell you that we've sort of had this test, and your son is dyslexic." No one knew what it was, and it was sort of okay. And as soon as I had this label given to me, it was like bloody freedom. You know, I'd go into a French class and just say, whoa, I don't have to do this. Did you not know I am dyslexic? And that was it. And I lent heavily on that. And in the end, they'd had enough of me. And I was just causing more problems than it was worth. And at 14, they kind of wanted me out. I wanted to be out, and I was out. And my parents ran a pub, and I ended up working in the pub, running a little business for doing car washing from the pub car park of customers. And I used the pub as my sort of learning curve of geezers in business, because it was all blokes then. There was very few women that I came across that were in business. And I just took nuggets of them and of what business was all about, of how you could drive a flashy car and have these shiny things. And that's kind of the path. And that was back then.
That's incredible because, as you say, it's that element of freedom, but also seeing that the fact is that you got your fire in your belly from going and actually being hands-on and working and seeing other people and being inspired by others rather than the textbook, which I think is something that is people are becoming more aware about in terms of how people learn and look at things today.
Carina, it was more that the textbook didn't exist. There was no audiobook. So my digestion of education was to be rubbing up against people or near people or listening or watching to learn how does that work. You know, I'm learning body language, tonality. I'm learning all of these things from being around that environment that I was very lucky to be in. And then my parents were very busy, so that allowed me to have some mischievous sort of freedom to do stuff and get on with stuff. And I started cutting grass, and that was probably at 15, 16. And I ended up with pockets full of money from being, you know, the guy that did the odd jobs and cutting grass, doing anything to earn a buck. But I was very smart at it, and I got very quickly doing it. My father used to drop me off with my mower to these places. They were scared, as my parents. What the bloody hell are we going to do with him? Because my brother and sister weren't dyslexic. They were older than me, and they'd had jobs, and they were often flying. And my mum genuinely was worried. And in this moment of sort of flux, unfortunately, my mum and dad split up, and I lost my main anchor that was my dad. And that was quite hard to digest at that time when I actually needed probably something there. And, you know, it croaks me up even as I speak about it now that I didn't know that was going to happen today, so I'm sorry, but it does, because when I look back at that actually was the thing that really either pushed me or bent me at the time, that I had to be in charge and I had to have sort of financial independence or success to get over perhaps that I didn't realise at the time was the scar of that.
And thank you for sharing that, because I can appreciate that's quite tough, and it just sort of highlights how things sort of right back to the very start, or almost, as you say, are like the foundation of why you built your business and where you are today.
There are bits of grit in there that make... Great. We've spoke about this off air. What are we doing? This is so hard. What we do is so bloody hard. No one in their right mind would do what you and I do as what I'd call proper grown-up entrepreneurs. A multi-million-pound turnover businesses that we've got. No one would do what we do. No one would do the hours. No one would put ourselves in the line of fire like we do.
Yeah, that's it. And there's that grit, as you say, that keeps you going, because it's not always easy. There's often the moments where we probably excel are those moments, those toughest points, like you gave an example when something happens that's like, well, what do? Do you just sink?
Yeah.
You've got to get up. And it takes a certain character to be able to get up. Yeah. So what happened then? Like, did you start your own business then, or you?
I started that, and grass stopped growing in the winter time. So then I started doing leaf clearance and stuff like that. And I realised that the space for my layman head was to then do some tree work, because trees got cut into the winter, and it was grass in the summer months and then trees in the winter. And I just winged it. And I went to take a course at Merris Wood, that was the arboricultural arboricultural sort of college it was then, and I got halfway through. It was getting a bit reading and writing-y bit, the practical bit. I just got that, and I got done because I nicked the van and the truck from the college at the weekend, and I was doing work, and I had been doing for quite a few weeks, and I got found out, and I was using the students that were above me to come and cut the trees and do my jobs for me. So the whole thing unravelled. Mr. White, if you're watching, I'm really sorry. But that's what happened, and they just politely asked me that you can now go, and I got kicked out again. So I kicked out of school, kicked out of college. And that was it. I had all their telephone numbers, and I started the Ruskins. It was Ruskins Trees then, but it became the Ruskins Group. And by the time I was 18, By the time I was 18, I was just thinking back, Carina. By the time I was 18, I had my own house that I'd bought. I had a PA to do all my reading and writing for me in a porter cabin in a yard. And I probably had about 9 employees. And we were flying. I mean, we had a very busy business. And then I then started looking at other ways to get... I desperately wanted to have the handle of being a local authority contractor. I thought if I had that wrapped round me, that would give me kudos for my domestic customers. And it was chickens and eggs, because you couldn't... When you filled the form out to become the contractor, they wanted all of your qualifications that we didn't have, 0, and they wanted the name and address of the local authority that you already work for. And we didn't have any of that. So the long story short of this is I ended up going to an arboricultural conference in Liverpool, and I put my money down. And you and I talk about re-educating ourselves now, courses and masterclasses that we might go on. Well, that was my mini masterclass, because I went there and I met all of these people that were in the game, at the top of their game, from arboricultural tree officers to consultants to everything. And I, with my dyslexic brain, just sucked it all up. Ended up seeing a guy that had the Essex County Council badge on, that was where I was from. Mr. Wortley, if you're still alive, Mr. Wortley, send lots of love to you, because you were the tipping point for my business. And I said to him over a drink in the bar, how do you do that? How do I get this thing done? And because I was there and because I bothered to go to it, he was very generous, and he said, look, just speak to me on the phone. He gave me his card, and he put me through, and I became a contractor with Essex County Council. And very, very quickly, we got to know all the other tree officers in these conferences, and we were working all over the country within 4 years. We were turning over multi-million pounds worth of turnover with up to 70 men we had. Wow. Very quickly, inside sort of 4 to 5 years.
Wow, and you were then early 20s?
Yeah, early 20s. Yeah,
Goodness.
I was probably then 26, 27.
Wow.
Yeah. And we had 3. We had Ruskin's arboricultural contractors, Ruskin Trees Nursery, and Ruskin Tree Moving, and that was, we just got into the industry. And I think anybody watching, you need to go into industry based, talk at conferences, go and become a member, and go to the huddles that they do, because these guys, these tree officers, they were the ones giving all the work out, but they were my buddies in break times at these conferences that you chat to. And there was an affiliation of reciprocation to give us the work.
Yeah. That's fascinating, and congratulations for being able to achieve that at the age of, as you say, 18, and you've already built a business. Because, as you say, even if you stayed in school, you're still not taught how to run a business. No. And the fact that you come across as what I would say probably the word that I would use is like a sponge of absorbing everything and what everyone's saying around you, taking all that in. But the greatness there is you're not just taking it all in, you're then like, how can I use that to get to the next level and to grow and to grow?
But Carina, that hasn't changed. I mean, I'm doing that now.
Yeah.
I'm doing that every day. Every time I'm either doing masterclasses or doing a podcast, but on my podcast, I want to meet new entrepreneurs. I want to find out, there must be something you can give me. I want to steal something,
Yeah, definitely. But I think that's fascinating, because I think a lot of people don't necessarily realise the importance of that, but that comes also from building relationships as well with these people and putting yourself out there, going to conferences and all of that. I think people sometimes think that, success is driven by you just sitting there and sort of ploughing along, but the fact is you've gone and you've met people and you're continuing to learn.
I think that and this with the ups and downs of you running your business as a 100% owner. The problems never stop. They never ever stop. And if you think you've got it down, you're wrong. You're out of there. So you've got to get better at solving those problems with better ideas, better people, putting better systems, processes and people around you, and constantly that's what we're trying to do. what happened with me is I had great middle management that I learned how to. I realised at one stage, Carina, that I could not do all this. You know, I'm splitting myself in half from being an ops manager, a founder, doing estimates for big companies and running around. And I just spent my whole life stuck in a little minivan, whizzing around everywhere, trying to facilitate everything. And that was probably when I was about 22. And in the end, I then went and bought in middle management that were existing tree officers that knew the game and they were very good at what they were doing. And I literally stole them out of the local authorities and put them in my company. And they made our company look super duper because they were all qualified. They were arboriculturally versed in speak, how to do the quotes and the surveys, and that's what we turned a man and a van industry that was kind of that was the industry then into a sort of national company, and that was the difference. There was no real big national companies. We were out there. Asplundh were a big company from America, and they came and approached us and bought us. And they bought us out when I was probably 28. And they bought the company. It was a very strange feeling. It happened really quickly. It happened in about 6 weeks, and I probably sold it too cheap. And I didn't know anything I was doing. There was no lawyers involved. You know, I was winging it, and I was very busy, and it was engulfing me. So to exit it was almost like a relief. But when I'd done that and I had a few quid, I just did the usual thing. The deflation from it was hard once that happened, and bought a car, wrapped it round a tree, didn't insure it properly, did all the stupid things you would in your 20s, and didn't pay the tax on the money. And I found myself sort of all wiped out. Back then it wasn't a lot of money. It was probably just under £1 million that we sold it for. And then about 18 months to 2 years later, a guy phones me up and says, "Hi, we're the receivers for Ruskin's." And I kind of knew that they were smashing the business to pieces. I could hear the sort of jungle drums on it. And he said, "Would you like to have a look at buying it back?" And I very quickly, I arranged to meet this guy. He was in Romford, just up the road from us. I said, "Well, why don't we just meet face to face?" And I sat down and I said to him, "What do you need to achieve as a company out of this liquidation?" He said, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "Well, no one had mentioned any figures here." And I kind of knew what they'd cocked up and done. They were losing customers left, right and centre. And he said, "Well, no, I've got to cover my costs, and it's like 38 grand. And I said, "Right, okay, well, I'll give you that plus 10 grand and we'll shake hands on it now." And he just went, "Yeah, okay." He had no invested interest. All he wanted to do was be paid. He just wanted to be paid and get rid of it. There was some bills that the VAT had to be paid and stuff like that. And I picked up some debt with it as well. And I bought it all back. There was probably, back then was probably, 400 grand's worth of equipment and stuff that came back with it. And I literally got my phone book out and just phoned all the customers up and apologised to them. And they just all come back on.
Oh, wow.
Got some employees that had left and got them back in as well, and just built it up. And then the next sort of 5 years I built it up. And then the second time I sold it for a lot of money into management, and management bought it out. But that's just the sort of flip around of what happened. And that money, and the next time they really locked me out of the industry, so I couldn't do it. And I just went and bought property and fields and stuff and land and changed my pitch, and that was it. That was the difference.
That's crazy. That's wild. I haven't heard a story like that. That's the fact that you're like, well, I probably sold it for too cheap. Well, you were given that second chance, to make it work. So going back to when you were 18, you've got this successful business. You're employing people. Did you ever feel out your depth, or was there ever any fear of like, what the hell am I doing? I don't know if I can do this.
I think I felt constantly out of my depth, and that was my driver, was the fear of failure. I was very good at delegating because I literally couldn't do it. So because I couldn't read the forms or read the thing or read the HR or whatever it was, I spent quite a lot of money wrapping very good, capable people around me. And that from default, say I could have read a bit and I was pretty okay at reading, perhaps I would have tried to have done it myself and it wouldn't have been as successful, if that makes sense, because I had no choice than to actually get an ops manager in and to get someone in HR and to get a bookkeeper in really early, because those numbers were the wrong way round for me.
Yeah.
You know, I tell you a story. Very, very early days, we got a call out to do a job. I know where it was. It was at Dagenham in 2nd Avenue in Dagenham. And the guy asked me to go there, and it's a big fruit tree, cut it down and take everything away. That was the job, a morning's work. So I set it up for the guys. They had a job sheet. I sent them off. This was early, before I had a real good PA then. And they went there, and I saw the truck come back in the yard about 2:00 in the afternoon, and with a load of wood on it, and they'd finished, and they went home on a Saturday. About an hour later, a guy phones me up and says, look, you know, well, I booked you in to do this job. If you're not going to come and do it, tell me. I went, oh my God, where have the men gone and cut a tree down? They've obviously gone and cut a tree down somewhere. So I got the worksheet out and I looked at it, and then I got the job booking, and the job booking was number 25, and I'd sent them to number 52.
Oh my goodness.
So they'd gone to this house 52, gone in, and I said to them, there's no one there, just go in the side gates home, cut the tree down, come away. So I was like, oh my God. And our trucks were all sign written and stuff like that. So I just got in the van, drove round to this guy, and it was now getting dark on a Saturday evening. It's in the winter. Knocked on this guy's door, and I said, hi, and explained it. And you know, it's very little words this man said, and he said, best you come through. And he just I walked in, and it was this big sort of open plan sort of patio doors to this garden at the back, and he just hit the floodlights. And all there was just grass. There was no tree. There was obviously, because we'd taken it away, there was just grass and a few sort of bits of sawdust. And I saw his shoulders just drop, and his head sort of, I couldn't believe it. And it seemed like an age before he turned around to me, and he just turned around and said, well, I hope you're not bloody charging me for it. And I went, no. He said, right, yeah, well, I didn't really like the tree anyway. And I went, okay. And he said, right, okay. And just shuffled me out the door and into the street. And I was like, oh my God, thank God for that. You know, his nan could have been buried under the... I don't know what the ramification could have been. And that was by the skin of our teeth. We got away with it. And then when obviously we did the tree for the man another day. But that's just a dyslexic story that I have told that story before, but it's a true story. And it goes to the heart of the matter that I needed people around me to put all that stuff together. And today I have a PA. Christina's been with me for, say, 14 years. My previous PA was like 18 years before that. You know, I've been locked in with very good staff.
Yeah. And that's great that you saw that as that's your sign, right? Because sometimes people just like carry on and they just like keep going. But the fact that you have built that team around you, it's allowed you to obviously pass on tasks that aren't necessarily your strengths, but I'm guessing it's given you that thinking space as well. So you're not caught up in that sort of day to day.
I don't do anything day to day. Even coming here today, I will receive a text. It will give me postcodes, times to turn up. All of that is done with Christina that works for me. And it does allow me to do more being present on what I'm doing and concentrated on what I'm doing. And I say to anybody, you know, listening to the pod here today, you know, think about it, how it will really help you accelerate yourself to become the person that's actually, you know, steering the business as opposed to in the business. You know, we've talked about this before, whether we're in. And I'm with you on this. When things get tough, guess what? As founders, get back in the business, sort all the bloody things out. You know, the playground happens sometimes when you're not there, and you need to go in. You've over-promoted people, or you sometimes have to go. So it's not a hard and fast rule, but it's something we're aiming for constantly, is to try and sit back and steer a business with the right people running it. Yeah,
100%. And then when you're delegating to people, there's obviously a cost that's involved. And I'm guessing if we go back to your earlier days, was there a moment of like paying out for people and you have that part where you're like, I don't know, can we afford this? Like, does it ever play on your mind in terms of that financial aspect?
I think that the if you look at what's going on with the competition, and I learnt very early Carina, that I needed to stop doing that. And we needed to become our own entity of how we did it and who we were. So you couldn't get apples for apples. And I try and tell everybody about this with their business, that you need to become your own thing that's unique. And our unique thing was we were immaculate and we were on time and we were really good. And if you wanted to get it done cheaper, there's cheaper people out there. But if you want to get it done at a fair price with a really good job, then you come to Ruskin's. And we played on that heavily, and that allowed us to have more money around us because we were actually one of the dearest people in the market because we were really good. And we allowed that reputation over a period of time to really lead the company, and it allowed us to have great people on great prices. We paid the most money to all of our technicians as well, and that's why technicians came and worked for us, because they knew that we gave more money.
Was there ever a point where, when you're first building that up, there's a part where people don't see that value? Because I love the fact that you stick your heels and you're like, no, we're actually worth this. We're not dropping our prices just to suit. We know our value.
But it was, and the pinch point was, I didn't pay myself for probably 8 months, and I paid all the extra money of what I would take for holidays and luxury back into having a really good ops manager on 35 grand, and I only really took 30 grand was my wages, and I actually stopped taking that money and I pushed it into him. And to have the foresight to that was really that I was looking at another company that I admired, and I was copycatting them. You know, that you're taught at school that you shouldn't copy. Well, guess what? What a load of rubbish. Just copy and swipe and deploy it wherever you can, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's the part that people don't always see when they set up a business now, that sacrifice. Because you're seeing things for the long term. You can see, right, we're going here. Okay, but we need the cash to go there. I'm going to sacrifice paying myself. And you have periods of time where you don't have those holidays and things.
When I speak to entrepreneurs, and you do as well, that conversation about how they see it, and do they see it as a lifestyle? Are they having the reciprocation of reward now, or are they looking at it long term, that they've got a lifestyle journey but with a liquidity day further down the line of selling the business, of getting that big payday there? I don't spend a lot of money. I like work, and I like to do it, but I know I've got banked liquidity days that are out there as and when I want to do them.
Yeah.
You know, because I've got companies now that would really be fit for sale, because I genuinely don't work in them now. You know, I've got that down, but I've had years of experience to get it down, you know, to get the right people.
Yeah.
But we spoke about this off air. Finding people, God, man, is tough, you know.
Definitely. But the fact that then when you do find good people and they're still with you after so many years, like you said, is golden. But it just sort of shows you that it's almost like a moment where you're like, oh, you're a good place to work for. The fact that people do stay, rather than being a company with that high churn, which can be costly.
We've still got it today. I've got staff that have been with me over 30 years.
Wow.
I've got staff that have been with me in various different businesses, and I've moved them, and they're now managing directors of companies that I own, and that has become their journey of having. And this is the quote that I give: is we don't have people work for us; we have people that have careers with us. There's a big difference there.
Huge.
That language difference is big, and I still pay all of my staff over market value, but we have to have a product that we show that we are the best in it. And you know, in a bitey world, that's tough. But you're right. How do you do that when you're starting that out? I think it's tough. I think it's all. Do you know what? All of it's hard.
Yeah.
All of it's hard. None of it's easy.
Yeah.
You know, none of it's easy.
And how do you manage that? Because there are times when things go great and you're like, that's good. This is a time we can just have a chill. But there's times when it gets really tough. How do you manage those tough times?
I don't see the chill times. I sort of eradicate it from my sight. And if I do, I feel very uncomfortable when it feels like that. That's one thing I've got to bat in there. And then how I do it is underwriting everything I do with long-term forward thinking. So I'm constantly thinking sort of 10 months ahead all the time. And I don't worry, but I'm concerned of the future. You know, all this governments and who's running the country, this, that, and that. I've got to push that to the back of my mind and be my own e-commerce. I've got to be my own sort of micro bubble of commerce that we're fit within our own domain. So we've got profitable things as opposed to things turning over. We squirrel money away. We make sure we're lean where we need to be. And I'm constantly getting my team and my managing directors to think like me, like that. You know, I'm not in the businesses so much at all now. You know, I might make a meeting once every sort of 6 weeks with one of the companies. You know, that my managing directors are all women, and they can phone me any time, but they don't want to because they don't want to see that they're needing me.
Yep.
But sometimes they want counsel of me to answer a question of something, or purchasing they need me for.
Yeah, sure. The forward thinking part's really interesting because I guess that gives you that comfort of you're in control then, rather than having a business where you haven't got a clue what's going on or what's going to happen in the next few months and being very reactive. Would you say that you like to have that control, that solid understanding of where things are going?
Yeah, I mean, and you know, with interest rate changes, COVIDs, all the Brexit, everything that's thrown at us, all the slings and arrows, everything's thrown at us. As much as you think you've got it down and you're forward thinking it's all okay, it's not. You've still got to have underwriting things where I just think everything could happen to us. And that insecurity, I think that's the part of it. That constant insecurity is okay. It's kind of okay to feel a bit like that, and to feel a little bit nervy at all times. And that brings me back to what I started this bit about, is if you think you've got that cuddled sort of lush time, forget it, because that's when the trouble will creep in. And that's also where I've watched people get it down and stand back, and sometimes that they can trip up on that, because they've got too much in their comfort zone. Yeah.
And so I guess it's that living with an element of insecurity and being out your comfort zone. So that freaks some people out completely, which is probably why they're not fit to be entrepreneurs. Yeah. Do you do anything outside to manage that? Because I know you said about you do cold water swimming and other things. Does those sort of activities help you? It
does. I mean, you know, you're very sporty with all the things you do, and I say the last sort of 3 years only have I really got into being fit for the future. At 63, you can go and retire. It has no interest in my world at all. So I then looked at it on a perspective that if I am going to do another 20 years of business that I really would love to do, then I need to be fit for purpose, literally fit for purpose. My solace is to have thinking time away from the companies and what I see the vision and what I want to do with them. And I get a lot of pleasure in being out in nature and being a fitter, leaner me, that I am strong in bones and muscles and everything to be able to go into the future and still be there for everybody, including family, obviously. The cold water swimming is great. I've sort of picked it up off of someone that I interviewed. They got me into it, and I've never looked back. I try and do it every day. I've not done it today because we're coming up here early, but I will try and get a swim in this afternoon. And it just is something that I think the repetitiveness of it gives me order and it gives me structure. And I think that we need that in our world when we've got the responsibility of employed people that, you know, ultimately we're responsible for their mortgages and stuff. Then I need to be responsible for myself as well, and that helps. Yeah, that was a bit of a woolly answer, but it goes with the territory, if that makes sense.
But you raise an interesting point there about responsibility, because that is it. You are responsible when you start employing people. You're responsible, and you get that. And when you get panic moment, and then one of your employees goes, "Oh, I just bought a house. Oh, we're starting a family." You're like, that's when the reality kicks in. Have you ever had one of those? I mean, or I'll change that question actually. Is there ever a time when you feel that responsibility on your shoulders where you get sleepless nights, or you just, how do you manage that?
I must admit, to answer it truthfully today with you, I don't feel that so much now because the businesses are more mature. And when we're buying acquisition on businesses, we're buying better businesses. We used to buy quite cheap, sketchy businesses, then we'd go and repair them. Well, we don't do that so much now. We're trying to buy businesses that stand on their own 2 feet with great management in them. And I'm looking for profit margins before we're looking at that. If they're profitable businesses and we can then put some entrepreneur dust on them and make them better, or some tech or a better culture for how the businesses operate, then I don't feel the pressure of that so much. I must admit, but I am sitting in a very fortunate position where I have got a big portfolio of property that I could lean against if I needed to borrow some money to rescue a business that had a problem. So I don't feel it so much. But yes, back in the day, it was an invited pressure. If that makes sense, the responsibility was, I invited it in, so then you deal with it.
Yeah. That pressure. If we go back when you did feel that pressure, how did you say you invited it in? Were there any times where it would just take over you, like consume every, where it's constantly on your mind, you're always thinking about it, ends up being the be all and end all of conversation? Like, how did you then put it to one side?
I think that the only time I really felt it was when I sold the businesses. That I felt that I was letting everybody down and sort of throwing them to the wolves a bit. And the first time I probably did, because I was feeling the pressure then. The second time I put golden handcuffs on some of the managers that they could buy. They actually did a management buyout, so they became the owners of the business. It was more wholesome to do it that way. In COVID, I absolutely crapped myself of what is going on, to be restricted, to not be able to operate. And we had, the Baddow Park House had just had millions spent on it, and we just launched and we were shut down. And I had very good employees there. I went and took some money out of some savings so I could pay the way. I didn't know that this thing of furlough was going to happen. So I just made sure I had money sitting in my account ready to just pay their wages. And I didn't know how long that was going to go for. But I started doing it immediately, and then we didn't need to because the furlough came in and stuff like that. So that was a Scooby-Doo worrying time. I mean, you must have felt the same with your business. What do you do? But, hopefully we don't go back there. It was tough. But I've got better at it in my mind. I know what you're driving at here, but I sit better with it. I'm very good at running businesses now, and I don't feel the pressure of tripping up.
Yeah, that's it. And that's the part I can see from your journey, is that's what you go through, of you to get to a point where you're running all these businesses. You can't be consumed by the feeling of pressure every day, because that is part and parcel of it. And
that would become the dominant thing in your world, and that can't happen. What the dominant thing is in your world is steerage, stewardship and culture in the businesses.
Yeah. And I think that's the part where it's like with entrepreneurs is how far do you go, or how far can you keep up with it? Because there's an element where it can consume every second or every breath of you, and people burn out. Have you ever gone through that experience of burnout?
No, I mean, it's quite simply I haven't, but I do see it in others. When I'm doing coaching or whatever, I see people and I think if I tell them how to get to the next level, that might tip them over the edge, because it's huge for them to move the needle to where they need to go with that. I think there's different entrepreneurs. We use the word loosely. There's business owners, there's solopreneurs or solo business people, and then you end up getting people that own companies, that are investorpreneurs, and they are, they're mentors for their managing directors that run the companies for them. They're very different things, and we've got to get it on scale to where you are with how many people you've got wrapped around you, what you're selling, services or products. I think it's very, very different in different cases, and there are different levels. We do a mastermind now that is £2 million turnover plus. We think that is where we can add mega value to take people from this bouncing thing where how do they get through it to the next level. Well, that's where I'm niching into what I do now with any stewardship or consultancy. But there's another level underneath there where you're trying to get someone out of a van into managing their company. You know, and they're different places, you know.
Yeah, 100%. And they're different stages of the journey, but also it depends on the individual, as in, does the individual want that? And is the individual capable of getting that as well? Because it's all well and good having a dream.
Yeah.
But if you don't have that skill set or the grit, I guess.
I've noticed that people that are doing stuff, they haven't got community of other entrepreneurs or business owners around them, really, really struggle. It is bloody lonely and it is weird. You're making decisions in your head that you have no knowledge to check or balance whether I should buy the building or I should buy the company or I should get more products on or I should get less products on or whatever it might be. You need education, and education does never stop, and we're constantly looking. I'm trying to learn more every day, reading books, making podcasts, meeting people, but I think the key is people need to invest more time in themselves and invest in them. They can become a better person, and they can run a better business.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's what you mentioned from the start of you just absorbing and talking with people around you from an early days, and that helped. But you mentioned something interesting there in terms of your own journey and self-awareness and your own personal growth. Have you always been self-aware?
I think I have, because I've always been insecure, and I feel I'm still insecure now, and I'm still wanting to, you know, are we just winging this still? Sometimes it feels like we're still winging this, you know, and you know, there's no where is the plateau? Where is it? There isn't one, because we look at Elon Musk and we see that everything is possible, you know, from being absolutely skint to where he is now on such a short demographic. Then we're all behind a long way, you know. But we you know, you've got to look at that as the top of the tree. So there is so much more to do. I feel I'm only really getting started, because I've kind of got my balance of what is possible. Most people, Carina, I was saying to you the other day, most people that I meet are in their own way. And if we understand that, then we could work on moving ourselves out of our own thinking that we think we won't be able to do that, then you won't be able to do it. If we think we can do that, then you will be able to do that. And that's kind of simplistic to what it is. This is not for everybody. No. It just is not. No. You know?
You mentioned earlier as well, fear of failure when you were younger. Does that still...
Yeah, I do. It still lives with me, yeah. I keep looking constantly side by side, over my shoulder. I have this expression now, Carina, have I got everything tucked in? That duvet, is it tucked in that it's tight enough to travel with? You know, is everything okay? Yeah, so we own that. Yeah, and I'm 100% owner of that, so that's tucked in. Right, we own the building next door, because that could cause a problem if someone moved in there and they were, you know, could make noise abatement to our wedding venue. So we just bought another building next to the wedding venue because we need it to be tucked in. You know, have we got the right people in HR? Well, no, I need a better person. So we've hunted for a better person and we've tucked them in to make sure that the future looks okay. My nervousness or insecurity, if you want to call it what you said there, is a living friend around me, and I respect it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think,
does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And I think you know, you just sort of, the part here I see is like, because where you are now, as I said, from someone looking outwards going in, sees you as a very successful entrepreneur. But I'm getting the impression you still have pinch me moments.
Yeah. And I you know, I'm on socials and stuff like that, and I'm putting my hand up that I am this person. But you know, in my heart and stuff like that, you know, God, if I'd only learnt stuff earlier. Yeah. Where could I be today? That's actually how I feel.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. And do you ever sort of think, hang on, do you ever give yourself like that pat on the back as well? Because this is one thing I speak with a lot of entrepreneurs, and you say, I could be here, but then you're like, but to other people, you're like, but James, you're here. Like, would you ever thought that when you were 18?
No, I wouldn't have thought that. The one thing, the weird thing that I've got is, we know what a red book valuation is, say from Savills for a property, and we own shitloads of property, and I have them for different properties and stuff. Not so much on the companies, but on the properties, and I had them beside my bed in my drawer. like a freaking weirdo. And I every now and again, every five months or whatever, I just get them out and just peruse through them and just go to the back page and go, yes, that is guaranteed red book valuation at 1.9 million. So that's okay. So put that one there. And that was probably 18 months ago. So it probably is worth a bit more than that. And then I just stack the numbers and go, yeah, that's okay. I feel all right about that because our loan to borrowing is next to nothing. So that's okay. And it just gives me a security blanket of weirdonism to say that, don't be too nervous about what you might be doing. And sometimes I'll check and balance that before we go and buy something to say, can we really afford to do that without being punitive of other things around us? And then I can make the decision.
Yeah. You sound like you're really on top of everything.
Daily.
Yeah.
I mean, numbers to me, I can't read or write them, but if you've ever been to where we operate from, our headquarters is one of the big office suites there. I sit with a little rolly chair between accounts, Linda, and Christina, that's like an EA managing director really, but she runs everything with me. And then I just wheel from one to the other, and then in the same office, they look at one another. And at any day, at any point of any hour, she will give me that P&L and absolutely tell me what we've got and what we haven't got and what we're owed. And that is, if anybody listening to this now is not doing it, guess what? Sort your bloody life out, because you need to know your bloody numbers intimately, like they're bedfellows with you. And if you don't, a shame on you, because you need to. It's no good saying, well, I saw we had 50 grand in the bank. It's irrelevant. It's completely irrelevant. And you also need to know what the future looks like with what your spend is. Don't sleepwalk into situations.
Yeah.
Fucking see them coming to you. You've got to see them and see them. Look, this is coming. Don't ask for money at the last minute. Ask for money 6 months in advance. If you go into your bank and say, if you've got good management relationships or whatever, I can see this lull coming up. I don't think it's going to be great. The weather looks crap in the summer for whatever you might be selling or doing. I'm just earmarking with you. I could do with an overdraft of sort of like 50 grand in this period. I might not, but I'm just warning you. What do you think about that? What do you need to have from me for that? And they might turn and say nothing. They might say, well, you need to get that figure better, or you need to show me that, or you need to give me some security from that. But and now you're not sleepwalking down there to find out that you're going to hit, and then you're getting stressed, and then you're pinching things. Now you're trying to do cuts. We don't ever want to cut. We want to accelerate and expand. Cutting is not the right way to run a business. No. It's acceleration and expansion is how you run a business.
Yeah, definitely. And it comes back to that part of control. You can only be in control of your business if if you're on your numbers. Yeah. But unfortunately, so many people we work with so many brands that just don't understand or know their bottom line.
It's super frightening. And ram the point home. Ashamed of yourself. And stop calling yourself an entrepreneur or a businessman unless you're a business person. Unless you're knowing that you're doing that. Do it.
Yeah.
It is integral. And there's this guy that doesn't read or write. He's got a few businesses around him. But look behind me. I am on that more than anything. It is imperative to my world.
Yeah, definitely. And I always ask one last question to guests, is to go back. If you were to go back to James when he was 18 or even 14, and you were to give him a piece of advice, what would that piece of advice be?
I think, Carina, the one thing I would say is a couple of bits. Everything is possible. Like, everything is possible. And it just is. And you need to think like that. You need to have a mentality of thinking that everything is possible. We all have the same brain cells. Just use them in the best way. And I never thought. I thought as a dyslexic, I didn't have as many brain cells as the person that could read. And someone put me right on that. And the minute they put me right on that, I then said, all right, I just need to reorganise the brain cells to do what I want to do with them. And that was it.
I love that. And I've absolutely loved talking with you. I could talk hours more with you, just to hear your stories, and just your journey is incredible, because as I say, you always look at people where they are today, but what we miss out is that whole journey of learning, and that journey where, or not even journey where you are now, you still have those questions and those pinch me moments that people don't realise. So thank you for being so open. That's right. Because that is brilliant, and exactly why we have this podcast, to really dive into what it really takes to run a business. So Thank you so
I
much.
hope that's frightened most of the audience.
So for the audience here today, they're probably thinking, we want to talk more to James Martin. Where can they find you, James?
Okay, thank you. I mean, you can find me on all the platforms, and it will be James Martin Entrepreneur, or on the podcast is James Martin Entrepreneur Conversations.
Thank you. And all those details will be in the description in YouTube. So please reach out to James if you are looking for that support and if you want to talk to him more about his entrepreneurial journey.
I've enjoyed talking to you. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for listening today. Love this episode? Don't miss out. Hit subscribe on our YouTube channel and follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts and Instagram as we continue to keep it real.